Good afternoon. My name is Dale Pierce, and I'm here to present the dissertation defense on my topic and my study, which is on leadership styles associated with registered apprenticeship programs that address the middle skills gap in the Finger Lakes region. So just to get started, a little background on my study. A registered apprenticeship program is a program that trains technicians to a high level that work with companies in various industry sectors. So currently there is a skills gap in the American workforce. It's also referred to as the middle skills gap. The middle skills gap is thought to be caused by a couple different issues, but the two main ones are the mass retirement of baby boomer generation, and then also a lack of people entering career fields in middle skill occupations. So that's part of the issue that we have here. Middle skill occupation is defined as training that is required past the high school education but less than a 4-year degree. With that being said, middle skill occupations make up over 53% of jobs in America, but only 43% of the current workforces possess those skills per Johnson and Spiker. So little research has been done to examine leadership within registered apprenticeship programs on how they address the middle skills gap. Right, so again, the problem. There's a lack of evidence and research that exists on how leadership characteristics within registered apprenticeship programs address the known middle skills gap. The purpose of the qualitative study was obviously to investigate characteristics within advanced manufacturing registered apprenticeship programs in the Finger Lakes region in addressing the middle skills gap. So there were 3 guiding research questions to this particular study, and they're all kind of wrapped around leadership as a whole. What are the effective characteristics of leadership identified by manufacturing apprentices in the Finger Lakes region within their registered apprenticeship program? So again, apprentices are people that are in registered apprenticeship programs. They're workers, they work on the job, and they attend schooling afterwards as well. So question 2, what organizational characteristics improve the middle skills gap as perceived by the registered apprentice? All right, so this is looking more specifically at the company. Question 3, what is the perception of apprentices on how middle skills gap could be reduced in the Finger Lakes region? So attaching this study to theoretical framework really kind of goes back to looking at various learning theories, and a lot of them kind of align with experiential learning theories, which are several different ones, but Cobb's experiential learning theory was the one that we really looked at here specifically for this study. Registered apprenticeships are considered a work-based learning program, so there's a strong correlation with these theories, and Cobb's experiential learning theory is a process that translates experience into knowledge that was used for the theoretical alignment in this qualitative case study. Andragogy is also, I'm going to talk about this as we go through the presentation, is the art and science of helping adults learn. The average age of the apprentice in the United States is 27. They would be considered an adult. So andragogy is a great alignment for this particular study. Right, the literature review. We talked a little bit about the skills gap. We know that is an issue. There's a pipeline issue that exists right now. Not enough young people are entering into these middle skill occupations, as we discussed, and there's obviously an aging workforce. So right now, approximately there are 10,000 people retiring every day into the year 2030, as Orbitz states. So 79 million baby boomers were born after World War II, and a lot of that generation is retiring. Pipeline issue, obviously, we don't have many people entering into these middle skill occupations, which registered apprenticeships fit into that. So currently, right now, we have 17 million students that are enrolled in higher education, whereas our registered apprenticeship participants in the United States is, a little over 500,000. With that being said, Also, the literature points to recruiting issues with apprenticeship programs, and then obviously retention and keeping apprentices to go through those programs and complete them is an issue, and we will discuss this further. Looking at career and technical education is really widely known for its work-based learning opportunities. Think about co-ops, internships, externships, and models like the youth apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship model that I will discuss towards the end of the presentation were very evident in how the alignment of the curriculum would be beneficial to apprentices. Talk about the curriculum. There are some curriculum issues that have been stated throughout the literature review. The curriculum for apprentices is also referred to as related technical instruction. Okay, that's kind of the alignment of the curriculum with their occupation title that they are working within in their registered apprenticeship program. And then leadership, there's evidence that leadership is needed to sponsor a registered apprenticeship program and mentor apprentices, but little research has been conducted on specific leadership styles with apprentices or their mentors in their programs. All right, the research methodology. All right, so this particular study, we looked at a qualitative case study with the use of methodological triangulation. With that being said, one-on-one in-depth interviews were conducted with the apprentice. There were 2 focus groups that were conducted also with the apprentices, separate focus groups. And the rationale for doing this is, in qualitative studies, it's commonly used method is to do in-depth interviews and focus groups. This was appropriate for the study due to the lack of instruments surrounding the perception of leadership within registered apprenticeship programs. All right, so some of the assumptions that can be made and some of the limitations of the study we will discuss. Well, one of the assumptions that can be made based on the literature review is that public awareness, there is a big lack of public awareness about what registered apprenticeship programs are and what they do. There's also a known problem that recruiting people into registered apprenticeships is very difficult, especially folks of diverse backgrounds. And then retention, to keep those apprentices, going through their apprenticeship program, we know that is also a problem. Those are the assumptions that can be made. So limitations, of the study within it, you look at, or within the content, are leadership. Not many studies have been conducted on leadership within registered apprenticeships, thus this study has been brought forth. Curricular design, we talk about a little bit about the proper teaching methodologies that are aligned with the curriculum and the related technical instruction that I talked about earlier. There are some issues there. Recruitment issues as well. Again, limitations on why that is happening, and then the long-term impact of registered apprenticeship programs that has not really been kind of examined or discussed. And then also another limitation was the population size, the sample size of this particular study. All right, so the scope and the delimitations. The scope of this study was specifically with New York State registered apprentices. So what does that specifically mean? This study targeted New York State registered apprentices who are formally registered with the state of New York through the Department of Labor. Those apprentices fell under the group sponsor Rochester Technology and Manufacturing Association. So the RTMA, which is Rochester Technology and Manufacturing Association, they actually help the apprentice through their program and work with companies to help sponsor the registered apprenticeship programs. All of the companies within this study fell within the Finger Lakes region. It's a 9-county region, and then a total of 11 apprentices participated. All right, delimitations, the focal point is specifically on the Finger Lakes region. Occupational differences, so to give you an example, a CNC machinist that is working in the optics industry would be a little bit different than a CNC machinist working in the aerospace kind of industry sector, though the trade lines and the requirements for that person are kind of laid out the same. You look at somebody that's working in the optics industry, they're going to be machining glass instead of machining, let's say, aluminum or titanium or something of that nature, for example. So the target population and the sample population, as I said before, were New York State registered apprentices. All right. The sample details were apprentices within this study were all taken from what is considered advanced manufacturing trade occupations. Apprentices within the group sponsor setting for the Rochester Technology and Manufacturing Association. The Director of Workforce Development was critical to help recruit the target population. There were over 50 apprentices that were targeted. The goal for this particular study were to get 20 participants, and we had to do a lot of different things to try and get to the 11 that we were at. So the attrition on gaining participants for the study was rather difficult. All right, so the apprentice occupations you can see here are advanced manufacturing settings, mold makers, quality assurance tool makers, welders, machine builders. CNC machinist was a big one, but electrical, mechanical was probably the most heavily dominated in this study. Right, so instruments used, again, for the case study, qualitative, one-on-one interviews in depth with the apprentice, and then 2 separate focus groups were conducted. All interviews were recorded and transcribed and checked for accuracy with participants in the study. Permissions, IRB approved the study on March 10th of 2023. Consent forms were collected prior to conducting the study with all of the apprentices. All right, so we talk about reliability and validity. Methodological triangulation is often used in case studies to, ensure that the study is valid and has credibility. Again, methodological triangulation uses field notes, interviews, observations to collect data. For this particular study, again, we looked at one-on-one in-depth interviews and focus groups to gather our data. To reduce researcher bias by the following approved questions for both focus group and in-depth interviews. They were similar, so that builds strength as far as credibility and reliability in collecting data. Ethical procedures. Well, gather the factual data. That's extremely important. The data is not to be massaged in any particular way. Data was kept secured in a locked office, in a computer, in an encrypted software, which I'm going to talk about the software that I used here in a little bit. The study adhered to the Belmont Report's 3 principles for persons, beneficients, and justice for all participants. Researcher conducted interviews in a safe, secure location that was private from the public, and a very helpful environment to conduct the study too. Quiet and good learning environment. So the data collection timeline. IRB approved this on March 10th. Recruitment letters were sent out to apprentices from April 10th to the 24th. From that particular point, there were some problems and a lack of interest into the study, so that led to cold calls and emails to over 50 apprentices. 45 voicemails were left, which ended up leading to 11 apprentices to agree to participate in the study, and they signed the consent form. One-on-one interviews were conducted between May 1st and May 6th, and then 2 focus group interviews were conducted, separate interviews were conducted on May 17th. All the interviews were recorded, they were transcribed, verified all of the transcripts with the apprentices. There was a little back and forth with the apprentices to make sure that they were accurate, and they explained everything that they did in their questions. From that point, uploaded all of the data to MaxQDA software, which helped me, code and do my thematic analysis. From that point, that was at the end of May, towards the beginning of June, when this was all completed. As I said earlier, making sure the transcripts were accurate. Again, going back and forth with the apprentices and re-listening to their interview and transcribing it was critical, and also helped me with the thematic analysis. The organization was, rather easy, straightforward, because each apprentice had had their own folder within the Max QDA software, and the Max QDA software was a very powerful tool for me to use to help organize the data for all of the apprentices and the focus group, and then a lot of great tools and different formats that I can look at the data in a lot of different lenses. All right, so the data analysis. The data analysis I used was the Braun's 6 phases of thematic analysis. And this is kind of the continuum of the steps that are needed in order to conduct a thematic analysis. This is a very popular one. So obviously one-on-one coding was done first, developing themes emerged, and then also the same with focus groups coded as well. Looking at this when it says to familiarize yourself with the data, a lot of that occurred, going back and forth with the apprentice. Just making sure that your transcripts were accurate, and then as you started rereading and reading over and over, that's familiarizing yourself with the data. From that particular point, this all kind of happens simultaneously as you're kind of familiarizing yourself with the data as to generate initial codes and search for themes. So a lot of that really happens simultaneously. All right, so we're going to discuss the findings and the results from that. All right, so I look at the coding system, which is part of the Braun's thematic analysis, is to find the actual coding system. So you'll see here that all of the transcripts were coded in a particular manner as kind of you familiarize yourself with that data. One of the big ones was leadership characteristics within apprenticeships that the apprentices talked about. So you see there's 86 occurrences that happened across all of the interviews and focus groups. Curriculum was a big concern too. Also looking at, one of the things that came to the forefront that I found extremely interesting were the opportunities within registered apprenticeships, and how the apprentices talked specifically about the vast majority of opportunities that they have that help them in a lot of different ways in their professional and personal life. All right, so going back to our 3 guiding research questions of this study, the major themes were as followed. So again, research question 1, really the themes were high quality training and schooling. We talked about the related technical instruction. This kind of points to that. And then the second piece of research question 2 is mentorship, and I'm going to get further in depth to these. Research question 2 talked about the pathway to the apprenticeship, recruiting people into the apprenticeship program, and then the curriculum as well. And then research question 3, targeting youth, marketing, and then the college degree stigma. All right, so question 1, as we go through it again, just as a reminder, what are the effective characteristics as identified by advanced manufacturing apprentices in the Finger Lakes region in their apprenticeship program? Again, this points to high quality training and schooling and mentorship. And I really feel that this apprentice summed it up in a pretty good statement. Apprentice number 6, they were numbered 1 through 11. They have really all stepped up and sort of taken me under their wings. If I don't have this guidance, I don't have this leadership. So this particular apprentice really kind of pointed at the guidance and the leadership of their mentor in the apprenticeship program. Leaders within apprenticeship programs are called journey workers, and they help train the apprentice as they go through their apprenticeship program. So that speaks to the high quality training and also the mentorship that they are getting within the program. All right, so research question 2 really kind of points back more to an organizational standpoint perspective. What organizational leadership characteristics improve the middle skills gap as perceived by the registered apprenticeships. One of the things that I found very interesting is that 100% of the apprentices in this study mentioned that company leadership is welcoming new apprentices within and with outside of the company through a variety of marketing and recruiting strategies, which is really good to see. Also, too, school alignment was beneficial and the additional training was available. Some of the apprentices added that they kind of already met their schooling requirements, but the company that they were working with in this study allowed them to go back and get additional training. So the pathway to the apprenticeship program was a very big theme. Recruiting into it, and then also schooling for apprentices were really some of the good results. Just some of the results that we ended up having from research question 2. All right, research question 3, what are the findings? What is the perception of apprentices on how the middle skills gap could be reduced? So this is looking specifically at what the apprentices think could be done to help with the middle skills gap. Big one was targeting youth. Second was marketing, and then there's this college degree stigma. All right. Apprentice 8, basically led with this statement. I think getting into schools at the upper, middle, and high school level and promoting the program loudly, openly and loudly, making sure the pros versus college, especially for those that are unsure. This particular apprentice really talked about how, and again, this is going to kind of back up this statement below, is most of the apprentices didn't even know about the apprenticeship pathway. They were never told about it in high school, never told really about middle skills occupations. So again, 8 out of 11 apprentices expressed the need to promote middle skills careers in high school as equally as they do college degree paths. So that was very alarming, to be quite frank. Is that, again, this speaks back to the literature review on the evidence that supports the lack of awareness of registered apprenticeship programs. All right, so discussions and conclusions. All right, connections to the previous literature as I was just speaking. So again, there's things that are supportive. All right, recruiting seems to be an issue, obviously, of getting people into the program. The aging workforce, a lot of the apprentices in this study mentioned that there are mentors that they have or individuals that they work with that are getting ready to retire. So that aligned with a lot of the research literature. Skills gap, one of the things a lot of the apprentices kind of mentioned were just a lot of the new folks that were coming in, or just whether they were incumbent workforce or fresh out of high school, that there is a big skills gap with a lot of the apprentices or operators kind of entering into the advanced manufacturing industry. Kolb's ELT was very supportive. A lot of the apprentices talked directly about their experiences within the registered apprenticeship program on how it specifically helped them learn by doing. And then also the awareness. Again, the apprentice mentioned that the apprentice mentioned that there was a lack of awareness, all of them, 8 out of 11 to be correct, that they didn't know about the apprenticeship pathway. One of the things I found that was interesting about this particular study that was contradictory to some of the research literature is the curriculum alignment. One of the things that was very interesting, particular to this Finger Lakes region study, is that many of the apprentices felt that the curriculum was extremely appropriate, extremely meaningful, and aligned for the most part to their trade occupation outline. They mentioned that a lot of the faculty members that they worked with at local community college or training providers were extremely helpful. One apprentice actually went to the extent of bringing in something from work to use as a project for his class. His instructor allowed him, the instructor allowed him to do that, and he used that as a grade. So to me, that really aligns with andragogy and the science of helping adults learn. So that was a little bit different. So I think that really speaks volumes to the training providers in the Finger Lakes region on delivering meaningful, authentic, and just appropriate content to these apprentices. Right, so implications for leadership. What does that mean? Well, who are our leaders that we're speaking to? Well, first and foremost, school educators. That could be secondary and post-secondary educators. Looking at state education leaders as well, Department of Labor staff, group sponsors, and associate advocates, workforce investment boards, and then companies that also sponsor apprenticeship programs. All right, so what has to happen? Well, a rebranding of the apprenticeship pathway and rebranding of middle skills occupation must be considered. Raising awareness about these career paths is critical to furthering involvement in these pathways. So again, the top three here, you got marketing, raising awareness, and rebranding. All of those kind of work together and go hand in hand. And then I can actually, make an argument here for alignment with the K through 12 public school sector. I feel that if we align that all the way through the continuum of just not talking about career and technical education programs, just in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, if we were to get into the public education sector earlier and do different fun curriculum that is STEM related, hands-on, and aligns also to careers within advanced manufacturing and other registered apprenticeship occupations, that would be a more relevant conversation for many young people in the public education sector. Measurable goals, obviously, I think that looking at, you're targeting, different apprentices, different populations of people to enter this program. I think leaders need to make measurable goals in order to achieve that. Post-secondary articulation, looking specifically at apprenticeship programs and training sectors that allow apprentices to gain post-secondary credentials, whether it's a certificate, an associate's degree, or even furthermore, there are opportunities to do that. The reality is that apprenticeship programs, require more training as far as hours. If you look at hours and school requirements require much more than what a traditional 4-year college degree requires. All right, so recommendations for future research: replicate the study at a larger scale across manufacturing group sponsor associations in the United States. And you can also expand this to skilled trade construction occupations. Again, this was done specifically in advanced manufacturing occupations. Deeper look into non-traditional type apprenticeship programs like cybersecurity and healthcare occupations could be of value. Those are rather new, and I think a study in that would be very meaningful for the registered apprenticeship occupation programs. Okay, and then we're going to look at time-based versus competency-based. There are time-based registered apprenticeship programs and competency-based registered programs, and then also hybrid programs, which are a combination of both of those. I think future research into those can kind of tell you about the quality of apprentice that one would get, and then kind of looking back at the leadership as a whole, what type of leadership can be gained from those particular programs. All right, growth as a leader. Servant leadership. I have found that out. That's who I am. I'm here to lead and serve, and this program has done a lot for me in my life. But more importantly, it's kind of opened up my eyes to, who I am, how I want to lead in a particular way. I'm going to, obviously use my own skills and gifts that I have to really help people. We put people at the forefront of leading in an educational sector. Big picture thinking. To me, I think much bigger now after going through the ACE doctoral program. Career transitions in the last 5 years. As I've been going through this program, my leadership roles, at the college that I work at have progressed in a lot of different avenues. To me, I feel that now that I've gone through this program, I'm demanding of others to lead and do it on behalf of others. But to me, that really is a conduit for me to do that in all walks of my life, whether I'm going home to my wife and kids, just being a leader for them too, and my friends and my family. That to me, that's extremely important. So I think that's, as a whole, that's how this program's, impacted me. To be honest with you, am I going to apply for new jobs or do anything with that being said? No, I feel that I have one of the most perfect jobs possible for me. As an assistant athletic director and swim coach, the people that I get to work with, and this program has allowed me to become a leader and lead our student athletes and our swimmers and divers and coaches. So I'm very thankful for that. I truly have a position that I love, working with these young student athletes. So this program has really helped me with that. And then my references are a work in progress. And I would like to turn it over to the chair and committee for any questions. And thank you for listening.